Factory. Today I'm going to teach you how to make 2-hour journals out of 3 A2 sheets. You can choose any size of paper that you want. Obviously you have to bear in mind that if the size is smaller than A2, the pages are going to be smaller as well. We're going to be using some stitching as well, but first I'm going to show you how I'm going to cut the pages. Now, first of all, I've just noticed my paper is an A2 paper, and it comes from a spiral bound pad. This is the paper that I'm using. This is Daler mixed media paper, which is quite a nice weight, 250 GSM. And that's A2. You get the dimensions here as well in inches, 16.5, 23.4 inches. So, because what I've done basically is to remove the spiral from the pad, and as a consequence, obviously, you have little holes on the side there, which I'm going to get rid of. What I'm going to do, and it's too small, never mind. What I'm going to do is use my metal ruler and a craft knife as well. Here we are. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to line them nicely together. Have my metal ruler. Press quite hard. And just cut. It's probably going to take me quite a few to do this back and forth. Because the paper is just so thick. Now if it's not nice and tidy like here at the top, it's not very nice and tidy, but well, that doesn't bother me, because basically the rest of the paper, I'm not gonna cut it with scissors or well, anything precise anyway, so that doesn't bother me in the slightest. There we go, just get rid of those like that. And let's see now, try to get as much as I can out of it. Here we go. And now let's do the last one. I was trying to be a little bit too keen and have them all cut at the same time, but probably the best way really would probably be to just cut them one at a time. Just going to tidy that bit there a little bit. That will do just fine. There we are. Now, next what we're going to do is cut our paper in half lengthways. Now, I'm not going to be measuring. What I'm going to do is just basically fold in half each of them. Just get rid of my mess there. There we go. That's one. Two. 3. And basically what I'm going to do is just use my metal ruler, put it against the fold, the other way around, it'll be easier for press quite hard and just tear my paper. Just line it up properly. There we are. So that's one done. Line it up. Pages done. And the last one. Now the paper's quite thick, so it doesn't go as easily as watercolor paper, for instance. It's a lot softer. Here we are. So I have now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 strips of paper. And what I'm going to do, that's going to be the only measuring that I'm going to do, is to measure the height of this. 21.5, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to measure the same, so 21.5, make a mark at the bottom and the top, roughly. I'm going to be doing that on each page, and what I'm going to do is basically, lost my mark. Ah, there it is. There we go. I have it a little bit bigger so I actually see where it is. I'm just going to fold the paper to the marks there. And I'm going to use my metal ruler and tear my page. What I want for my smaller size journal is basically a square. So I'm going to be doing exactly the same as with the other ones. What I'm going to do to make things easy for myself is to use the one that I've already cut and fold it at the same place. So just press hard on the side against the ruler and then tear it. Now, I'm not worrying whether this is completely straight or not. It's torn edges anyway, so it doesn't really bother me. That just won't prevent me from painting on it if it's not straight. So it's no big deal. I don't want to stress about it. Here we are, so lining it up. Putting my ruler. Pressing against the ruler and tearing the paper. Just as easy as that. I'm nearly there, 2 more left. And the last one now. Here we are. Now I have a set of rectangular pages. I've got 6. what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna put them in signatures of 2. So I'll have 4 pages. So I'll just fold these in 2. Because they're not that many, I won't really need a bone folder to flatten them quite nicely. I just use my nail, it's more than enough. As you can see, one of them wasn't very straight, but well, hey ho, never mind, that's fine. And the last one, still going to try to line them up as much as I can. Here we go. So that's my 3 signatures. Now you've got, almost get some squares. That's quite a nice size. And for my squares, I'm going to do exactly the same. I'm just going to take them in 2s and fold them together. So you end up basically with a format that's quite similar to a notebook. And if you want to do a double page spread, then you have a square. So I quite like that option. Here we go, 2 of them in there. What I'm going to do, I'm going to get rid of that little bit sticking out. Here we are. I really like that nice rough edge effect with these, because I don't know about you, but if you buy an expensive art journal, it's all nice and pretty and neat, and you just feel like you have to do nice pages in it. So it's actually, to me, some pressure that you add to yourself. Whereas if you have an art journal, pages are just, you know, quite rough edges. They're not particularly equal in size. Well, you know, it just takes the pressure out, really. Here we go. So you have 3 signatures in a notebook format and 3 signatures in almost a square format. What we're going to do is to make our journal with our notebook size pages, signatures I mean. What I'm going to be using for the cover is an A4 size sheet of craft foam. It's quite a thin one, so you know, you don't need something too thick. Obviously I've got my 3 signatures. I'm going to be using a pencil for making my marks. And also I've got an awl and some linen thread. I think, to be honest with you, I'm not really sure exactly what kind of linen this is, but I get it from my mum's, and it's actually thread that you use for making models when you make ships, to make all the ropes and everything for the models. So that's what it is basically. There was one left from my dad, and I've decided to take it. I thought, well, I'll use it definitely. And also I'm gonna be using an embroidery needle. I'm gonna be using quite a thick one, because to go through the foam I'm gonna need to put quite a lot of pressure, and if I use a thin one, that's gonna hurt my my fingers like hell, so I don't want that. And that's pretty much it. So what I'm gonna do is have a look and show you basically what I'm aiming to do with this cover. If I put the sheet of craft foam here, I've got all my 3 signatures, putting them all together, and what I'm going to do is put them just off the edge a little bit, and I'm going to make a mark with my pencil against it. And I know that on this line is where I'll stitch my first signature, basically. So that gives me a really quick guide. Now, obviously, if I show you, put those signatures back together, I'm turning this, and you have a little bit left here. What I'm planning to do with this is use it as a flap. So that's quite a nice option, especially since it's such a nice size. You can actually put it in your handbag. Having the flap actually protects your pages on the sides, so that's a really nice option. I quite like that option. Now what I'm going to do is take my first signature, take the owl, and you know me, if you've seen my first video tutorial about making the art journal with flaps, I eyeball it. So in the middle, more or less, make a hole, about ½ an inch from the edge, again eyeballing it, and again same on the other edge. And what I'm going to do is to take one of these and use it as a guide for my other two signatures. I know they're not going to be exactly the same. As you can see, that one's a little bit smaller, so what I'm going to try to do is put it more or less center and just make those holes again. Here we go. So that's one signature done, and my last one, again, as you can see, sizes in those two differ a little bit, but well, it doesn't bother me. So it shouldn't bother you, really. Be fine. Here we are. And my last hole. Here we go. And I'm just going to put this guide back with the other one. I'm just going to put my owl again very gently to align the two pages together. Yeah, done it, so that's fine. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to start stitching my first signature on the guideline there. Now, I'm going to measure my thread, basically 2.5 times, pretty much, the size of my page, the length of my page. I'm going to grab some scissors. Here we go. And I'm just going to put the linen, my needle, and that's quite a nice thick needle, so there's plenty of room and you don't need to struggle. And now I'm going to need to decide whether I want to stitch from the inside or the outside. If I stitch from the outside, the thread is going to be dangling a little bit. Now, because it's not such a nice thread, usually I use baker's twine, so it's quite nice and it's decorative as well, or it's colorful, so that's quite pretty, and you can actually do dangles with it. But I'm not going to do that today. What I'm going to do is start from the inside. So I'm going to start with the middle. And if I line up against the mark I've made, and I'm just going to poke it. There we go. Now what I might do actually is with my owl, I'm going to leave my needle here because that's going to secure my signature, and I'm going to make some holes as a guideline through the foam craft. Otherwise from the outside I'm not going to know where I need to put my needle. There we go. That's a bit better. Here we are. And for the stitching, that's the easiest stitching in the world. It's a figure of 8. You've only got 3 holes, so it doesn't take too long. So put my needle in the hole and through the pages, and there it is. just pull on the ends, on both ends, to make sure it's quite taut. Then back in the middle. As you can see, it's not very taut, so I'm just going to pull it a little bit. Oops. And my linen decided to get out of my needle. Not nice. So into the hole through the foam and through the pages. And now what I'm going to do is just pull the middle one quite taut, and this one as well, and tie these two together. So one knot, two knots, and what I'm going to do is do another one but different, opposite direction. So using the left side, my left side, onto the right, and just cut the excess. Here we go. I'm going to stop the camera here because I'm going to be stitching the other two. Basically what I'm going to be doing is just basically stitch them one after the other, leaving a very small gap between the two. So I'm not going to bore you with that. I'm going to stop the camera, and I'll start it again once it's done to show you the rest of what I'm going to do with that cover. Now my first journal is almost finished. The stitches, if you don't like these, you can always cover them with some fabric tape as well, so you can cover that. You can cover the spine to have it a little bit nicer. That doesn't bother me too much. You can paint over it if you want as well. That's, you know, loads of options that you have here. One thing I wanted to explain is I've left a little bit of room between each signature. There's two reasons for that. The first reason, which will be valid whatever your cover is going to be, whether you decide to use a cardboard box, cereal box, or even fabric to use as a cover in this kind of format, you need to leave some room, because depending on what you're going to be doing with your pages, the paints, layers of paint, layers of collage are going to make it thicker, so you need to allow for that room, you know, that extra room that your paper is going to be. You need to allow it between each signature. The second reason why you need to have a little bit of room is because the craft foam is quite stretchy, so if you have a hole, if they're too close together, they're actually going to merge and into one big hole, and your signature is going to be moving all the time, which is not great really. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to finish the tab with a piece of Velcro that I found. It's double-sided sticky tape, but I don't trust it. It's a piece that I actually tried to use a while ago, and it wasn't working because the glue wasn't really great. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use some Eileen sticky glue to secure it. I'm going to put some, there's not that much left, so I'm going to have to shake it. Yeah, a little bit coming up now. Here we go. I'm going to put one on one side. I'm going to keep the Velcro stuck, the two pieces of Velcro stuck together, and I'll show you why in a minute. Press it hard in the middle, and then I'm going to put some tacky glue on the other piece, the top piece, and close the flap loosely again, you know, bearing in mind that your pages are going to be thicker when you start painting and collaging on them, so you don't want the flap to be too tight. Then trying to align it. Here we go. And you need to press quite hard then where you have your Velcro to be able to glue it properly. And all you need to do now is just to wait until this is completely dry before you open it, otherwise it's gonna unglue. Now the other option you have, if you don't have any Velcro, actually where it's still wet, I'm actually going to have it a little bit more towards the edge because it's sticking out a bit too much. I'm not too keen on it. Here we are. Other options you have to fasten your art journal is you can use just elastic bands to put around. My apologies, I had a camera accident. It's a new camera I'm using and it just keeps stopping, I'm afraid. Here we go. So back on the sewing. So I've put my thread between the pages, through the hole through the pages, then following onto the bottom one. There we are. Just making sure I've got these quite nice and taut. And I'm going to go back through the holes that I've been in the middle. Here we are. And for this one, same as with the other art journal, I'm just going to tie a knot at the top, a bit tricky. So I've got 2 knots going same direction and then 1 knot going the opposite direction. I'm doing that last knot just to make sure it secures everything, because if you've got your 2 knots tied in the same direction, you can actually physically pull the thread and the knot will get undone a little bit, or it might not be as taut as it was. So basically now I'm going to be stitching the other 2 signatures. So I'm going to stop the camera, I'm not going to bore you with that again, and I'll start the camera back again once I've finished stitching all my signatures. All I've got left to do now is basically just put this shoelace through the middle stitches, the smallest one. So I'm going to use my awl to lift these to make things a little bit easier for me, for myself, if I can, that is. Here we go. Now, because the tie is going to be, well, the shoelace is going to be tied here at the top, you just have to make sure that this side is going to be shorter than the other, because the other side obviously will have to go all the way around. Have it a little bit longer there. And here we go. How easy was that? So you've got basically now 2 art journals ready to be used, and well, it only took you 3 sheets of paper, so that's not bad, isn't it? Here we go. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you're gonna give it a go, and don't forget to put thumbs if you like it, obviously, to click on the thumbs up and subscribe. You take care. Bye.